Right now, as you're listening to this, your brain is consuming something that is slowly destroying your ability to think clearly, feel deeply, and live authentically. You wake up tired despite sleeping 8 hours. Your mind feels foggy even when nothing particularly stressful happened. You catch yourself scrolling mindlessly, reacting to everything, feeling agitated by things that shouldn't matter. You think this is normal. You think this is just life. But what you're experiencing is the result of feeding your consciousness poison every single day. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled an empire while maintaining his inner peace, understood something most people never realize. The quality of your life is determined not by what happens to you, but by what you allow into your mind. And right now, you're allowing in everything. Every notification, every negative thought, every worry about the future, every resentment about the past. You're treating your consciousness like a garbage dump and wondering why you feel like trash. The most dangerous part is that this mental pollution doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with warning labels. It disguises itself as staying informed, being responsible, caring about others. But underneath these justifications, you're systematically programming yourself for misery. You think you're just thinking, but you're actually training your brain to see threats everywhere, to find problems in every solution, to feel inadequate no matter what you achieve. Your phone buzzes and immediately you reach for it. Not because you need to, but because you've conditioned yourself to be a slave to digital stimulation. You scroll through social media and absorb other people's outrage, their complaints, their manufactured drama. You read news designed to make you angry, afraid, divided. You consume content that makes you compare your real life to other people's highlight reels. Then you close the app feeling somehow empty, agitated, less than you were before. But you do it again the next day, and the next, because you're addicted to the very thing that's killing you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, never intended for anyone else to read, "Remember that all is but opinion and conceit." Think about this deeply. The events happening around you are neutral. A promotion is just a change in job title until you decide what it means. A rejection is just someone saying no until you attach your worth to their decision. Rain is just water falling until you choose to call it good or bad weather. You are living in a world of your own interpretations, and most of those interpretations are making you suffer unnecessarily. You replay conversations in your head, analyzing every word, imagining what you should have said, building cases for why you were right and they were wrong. You project into the future, creating elaborate scenarios of failure and disappointment. You carry grudges from years ago as if the pain happened yesterday. None of this is happening now. None of this is real except in your mind. Yet you feed these mental movies more attention than you give to the actual present moment. The tragedy is that while you're lost in these mental landscapes of suffering, your real life is happening without you. Your children are growing up while you worry about their future. Your partner is sitting next to you while you scroll through your phone. Seasons change while you ruminate about things you cannot control. You are missing your life because you're too busy feeding your brain stories about how life should be different. But here's what Marcus Aurelius discovered that most people never learn. Your thoughts are not facts. Your emotions are not commands. Your reactions are not inevitable. They are habits. Mental patterns you've repeated so many times they feel automatic. But what can be learned can be unlearned. What can be programmed can be reprogrammed. The key is understanding that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes your thoughts. When you truly grasp this distinction, everything changes. You begin to see your mental activity the way you might watch clouds passing through the sky. Interesting, sometimes beautiful, sometimes stormy, but not something you need to chase or fight or become. You can observe your anger without being angry. You can notice your fear without being afraid. You can watch your sadness without drowning in sorrow. This is not suppression. This is freedom. Most people never reach this understanding because they're too busy being their thoughts to observe their thoughts. They identify so completely with the voice in their head that they forget they are the listener, not the speaker. They become so absorbed in their emotional reactions that they lose touch with the calm awareness that exists beneath all emotions. They mistake the weather for the sky. The Roman emperor, who had unlimited power, understood that real power comes from controlling your own mind. He could command armies, but the battle that mattered most was the one happening in his own consciousness. He could acquire anything, but what he valued most was the ability to remain undisturbed by external circumstances. He could punish his enemies, but his greatest victory was making peace with his own thoughts. You think your problems are complex, but they're actually quite simple. You suffer because you resist what is happening. You feel anxious because you want to control what cannot be controlled. You feel angry because reality doesn't match your expectations. You feel sad because you're attached to things that are temporary. All of your emotional pain comes from fighting against the nature of existence itself. Marcus Aurelius practiced daily exercises to train his mind, not to think positive thoughts, but to see clearly, not to avoid difficult emotions, but to experience them without being consumed, not to eliminate desires, but to hold them lightly. He understood that the untrained mind is like a wild horse, powerful, but dangerous, capable of taking you places, but just as likely to throw you off and leave you broken. The training begins with attention. Right now, notice what your mind is doing. Is it judging these words, planning your response, thinking about something else entirely? Don't try to change anything, just observe. This observation is the beginning of freedom because you cannot change what you cannot see. Most people are so identified with their thoughts that they never see their thoughts. They are the character in the movie instead of the audience watching the movie. When you develop the ability to observe your mental activity without immediately reacting to it, space emerges. In that space, choice becomes possible. You can choose to feed the thought or starve it. You can choose to follow the emotion or let it pass. You can choose to believe the story or recognize it as just another mental creation. This choice is your birthright, but you've forgotten you have it because you've been on mental autopilot for so long. Breaking free requires discipline, but not the harsh discipline of self-punishment, the gentle discipline of awareness. Every time you catch yourself scrolling mindlessly, pause and ask what you're really seeking. Every time you notice yourself replaying old grievances, gently redirect your attention to the present moment. Every time you find yourself worrying about the future, remind yourself that the future exists only in your imagination. This is not about becoming a robot without feelings. This is about becoming a human being with emotional intelligence. You can feel anger without lashing out. You can experience sadness without drowning in despair. You can notice fear without being paralyzed by it. You can have desires without being enslaved by them. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant by preserving your spirit unpolluted and pure. The pollution in your consciousness didn't happen overnight, and the purification won't happen overnight either. But every moment you choose awareness over reactivity, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. Every time you observe your thoughts instead of believing them automatically, you weaken their hold over you. Every time you respond from wisdom instead of reacting from habit, you strengthen your authentic self. Your authentic self is not the anxious voice that worries about everything. It's not the angry voice that resents what happened. It's not the sad voice that mourns what was lost. It's not the fearful voice that anticipates disaster. Your authentic self is the peaceful awareness that can observe all of these voices without being any of them. This awareness is always calm, always present, always whole. It doesn't need to be fixed because it was never broken. When you align with this deeper part of yourself, external circumstances lose their power to destabilize you. You can experience loss without being destroyed. You can face criticism without crumbling. You can encounter setbacks without losing hope. You can be alone without feeling lonely. You can be with others without losing yourself. This is true strength, not the ability to avoid difficult experiences, but the capacity to remain centered in the midst of any experience. The work is simple, but not easy. It requires you to become the guardian of your own consciousness, to be selective about what you consume mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to treat your attention as your most precious resource and invest it wisely, to remember that every thought you feed grows stronger and every thought you starve grows weaker. You have been unconsciously training your mind for suffering. Now it's time to consciously train it for peace, not by avoiding life, but by engaging with life from a place of inner stability, not by suppressing your humanity, but by expressing it more wisely, not by becoming invulnerable, but by becoming unshakable. Marcus Aurelius knew that external events would continue to challenge him until the day he died, but he also knew that his response to those events was entirely within his control. He couldn't control the barbarians at the border, but he could control his response to their presence. He couldn't control political intrigue in Rome, but he could control his response to betrayal. He couldn't control illness and death, but he could control his relationship with mortality. You face the same choice every day. You cannot control what happens around you, but you can control what happens within you. You cannot control other people's actions, but you can control your reactions. You cannot control the past or the future, but you can control this present moment. This is where your power lies, not in changing the world, but in changing your relationship with the world. The invitation is simple. Stop feeding your brain what is killing you slowly. Stop consuming mental junk food and start nourishing your consciousness with wisdom. Stop reacting to every stimulus and start responding from your center. Stop being a victim of your own thoughts and start being the master of your own mind. But understand this clearly. The moment you begin this work, resistance will arise. Your mind will convince you that you need to check that notification, that you need to worry about that situation, that you need to replay that conversation one more time. This resistance is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're doing something right. You're disrupting patterns that have been running your life for years. The mind that created your problems cannot solve your problems. You need to access a different level of consciousness. Marcus Aurelius called this the view from above. When you can observe your life from this elevated perspective, your problems don't disappear, but they shrink to their proper size. The drama that consumes your daily attention reveals itself as largely insignificant. The fears that paralyze you show themselves to be mostly imaginary. The anger that burns through you transforms into understanding. This shift in perspective doesn't happen because you read about it or understand it intellectually. It happens because you practice it consistently. Every day, multiple times a day, you catch yourself lost in mental noise and gently return to presence. Every time you notice yourself reacting automatically, you pause and choose your response consciously. Every time you feel overwhelmed by circumstances, you remember that circumstances are neutral and your interpretation is everything. Most people give up during the early stages of this practice because they expect immediate transformation. They want to feel better right away. They want their problems to disappear. They want other people to change. But that's still the same mind that created the suffering in the first place. The mind that demands instant gratification, that wants to control outcomes, that believes it knows how things should be. True transformation happens when you stop trying to feel better and start trying to see clearly. When you stop demanding that life conform to your preferences and start learning to work skillfully with whatever arises. When you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start recognizing yourself as the creator of your experience. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, betrayal, and personal loss. His life was not easier than yours. His circumstances were often more challenging. But he developed the capacity to remain centered in the storm. Not because he was naturally calm, but because he trained himself daily to distinguish between what he could control and what he could not control. He focused all his energy on what was within his power and accepted everything else with grace. This acceptance is not passive resignation, it's intelligent engagement. When you stop wasting energy fighting against reality, you have more energy to work skillfully with reality. When you stop resisting what is happening, you can see more clearly what needs to be done. When you stop demanding that the world be different, you can actually contribute to making it better. The path forward requires courage because it means taking full responsibility for your inner life. No more blaming others for your emotions. No more waiting for circumstances to change before you can be happy. No more believing that your thoughts are true just because you think them. You become the author of your own experience, the artist of your own consciousness, the guardian of your own peace. This is not a comfortable path. Comfort is what got you into this mess in the first place. The comfortable choice is to keep scrolling, keep reacting, keep feeding your brain the same poison that's been slowly killing your vitality. The uncomfortable choice is to face your mind directly, to see your patterns clearly, to change your habits deliberately. But here's what Marcus Aurelius understood that most people never learn. Temporary discomfort leads to lasting freedom. Temporary effort leads to effortless being. Temporary discipline leads to natural wisdom. The Roman emperor, who could have chosen any pleasure, any comfort, any distraction, chose instead the difficult path of self-mastery because he knew it was the only path to genuine satisfaction. Your mind will tell you that you don't have time for this work, that you have too many responsibilities, too many problems, too many people depending on you. But this is exactly backwards. You don't have time not to do this work. Every day you delay is another day of living unconsciously, reacting automatically, suffering unnecessarily. Every moment you spend in mental chaos is a moment of your life you cannot reclaim. The practice begins now, not tomorrow when your schedule is clearer, not next week when your problems are solved, not next month when you feel more motivated. Now, with this breath, with this moment, with this choice to pay attention to what is actually happening instead of what your mind is telling you about what is happening. Start small, but start today. Choose one moment each hour to pause and observe your thoughts without judgment. Choose one interaction each day to respond instead of react. Choose one evening each week to sit in silence without any stimulation. These small choices compound over time into profound transformation. Marcus Aurelius kept a private journal for his own guidance and growth. He never intended for anyone else to read his thoughts. Yet these private reflections became one of the most influential philosophical works in human history because they capture something universal about the human struggle for inner freedom. His words still speak to us across 2,000 years because the challenges he faced in his mind are the same challenges you face in your mind. The Roman emperor who had everything understood that this inner freedom is the only thing worth having. The capacity to remain unshaken by external circumstances, the ability to find peace in the midst of chaos, the wisdom to see clearly without being clouded by emotion, the strength to choose love even when others choose hate. This is your inheritance as a human being. This is your birthright as a conscious creature. Now it's your turn to claim it. The choice is yours, and it's available in every moment. Will you continue feeding your brain what is killing you slowly, or will you begin nourishing your consciousness with wisdom? Will you remain a slave to your reactions, or will you become the master of your responses? Will you stay lost in the mental noise, or will you find the peace that exists beneath all noise? The Roman emperor made his choice. Now make yours.